season 2 of Full Speed. I want to go back to last year's season. So when you watched it, were you wishing not only to be part of the series, but the implications of being part of the series, meaning you would be in the playoffs? So I think you kind of, it's a double-edged sword. You want to have both of those things, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's the only thing I can relate it to is like when you're watching the banquet on TV. Like it's like the
Right.
exact same feeling. You're like, man, I wish I was at the banquet. But when you're at the banquet, it's one of those things like, you know, it just depends. Like if you're the 16th guy, it's like, man, that's a bummer. Like I wish we were better. But then when you're not at the banquet, it's like, man, I wish I was just even the 16th guy there, right? So yeah, that's the closest thing I can relate it to. Is it just watching season one? It just felt like the same feeling as when you watch the banquet because you wish you were part of it and you know what it takes to be a part of it.
Right. So then we go to now this season, which is the 2024 playoffs. And you couldn't be thinking, oh, I'm going to be in the Netflix docuseries because you weren't in the playoffs until the
Yeah.
last race of the season. So when did you finally realize, oh, wow, I'm going to be in the Netflix docuseries because it was literally the last race to get into the series or
Yeah,
into the docuseries?
yeah, literally in Victory Lane. I found out that I was potentially going to be a part of it. We're celebrating and doing all the stuff, and they came up and mic'd me up. And sometimes NASCAR will mic you up, but I don't know why. I just asked. I was like, "Oh, what's this one for?" And they're like, "Oh, this is for Netflix. You're probably going to be a part of it if you want to." And so yeah, me and my wife talked about it. They said, hey, on Monday I think it was, they said if you want to be a part of it, we would love to obviously follow you around. And so me and my wife talked about it, and we just felt like with everything kind of going on in our life, there was no way that we would be able to film it all and especially do as good of a job as they did. So just let them film it and follow us along with the process, and it would be able to live forever that way.
Right. So you talk about what you and your wife, Marissa, had going on. You guys were expecting twins. So I guess the conversation has to be, it's like, do we want them to cover everything and document the birth of our twins? But it's also a very personal moment. So how did you set up the boundaries of, okay, what are we going to allow them to cover?
Yeah, I feel like me and Marissa, we've always been pretty open about everything. So from that standpoint, there wasn't really ever a conversation of, hey, we're letting them do this, but we won't let them do that. Marissa was going through a lot of health stuff, through the time, and there was times where, truthfully, Netflix was wanting to film stuff, here at the house with, for example, her just watching a race, right? But she felt
Right.
so bad all the time that she just was like, I don't think I can do it today. But other than that, I mean, it was a wide open book. They were literally at the hospital, I don't know, 4 hours after we had the twins, I would say. And I mean, literally even came to the house at 4:30 in the morning when we were leaving to go to the hospital. So um, they definitely kind of had full access. And something that we talked about is if we're going to do it, like we have to let them have the full access. Otherwise, it's just not going to be the full story. So yeah, it was very eye-opening, and it was neat to have them be a part of that whole thing. And truthfully, became pretty good friends with a lot of the crews. So it was a lot of fun for sure.
So you had the unique experience of them documenting you and your wife having twins, but you also had the unique experience of being at a race shop that was closing. So, a shop that's had tremendous success through the years. And so kind of tell me what it was like there, because I would assume that there wouldn't be a lot of boundaries just because what secrets did you have to keep considering the shop was actually closing?
Yeah, it was definitely that was one thing that I feel like is so unique about, I guess just following the 14 car is, from an access standpoint, we literally could open it all up because there was nothing to hide. Like we were shutting down at the end of the year. So, a lot of that stuff didn't truthfully make it into the show, but I mean, there was a ton of stuff that, they were a part of that, they probably, I would guess, weren't a part of at other race shops just because, like I said, for us, it didn't really matter. Like we didn't have anything to hide. So it was, definitely, I think cool to let them kind of in behind the scenes of being at the victory celebration at the shop and things like that, to where it was just such a unique part of the timeline for Stewart-Haas Racing in general. Being there that day was honestly the coolest day I'd ever experienced at Stewart-Haas Racing in my entire 7-8 years. Just the electricity in the air there was unlike any other day I'd ever imagined. So, letting them be there on that day and get to experience that and really let the fans even see kind of behind the scenes of what that process was like, was a really unique thing, I feel like.
Yeah, you mentioned showing things that got cut out, because I saw in another interview you were talking about some things with you and other drivers that didn't make it. So kind of just give me a sense of one of those things, maybe with you and another driver that was filmed, and you thought would make it into the show, but didn't.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. The two things I thought for sure were going to make it that didn't make it. This wasn't even with another driver. This was kind of off track stuff. Was one of them was me and my wife having this like incredible discussion about minivans and how I wanted to have a minivan and she didn't want to have a minivan. I thought for sure that would have made it in, because I was pretty headstrong about wanting a minivan and how cool they were. And the other one was actually at the hospital. Our room had like a balcony, and they were filming, Brooks running around, all this stuff, and he ran out on the balcony and like just randomly took off running out there. And I opened the door to see what he was doing, and he was literally just peeing off the balcony. And I thought for sure that would have made it in there, but yeah, I guess it didn't.
All right, so just looking back on this docuseries will live in perpetuity. And how fortunate do you feel to have that it documented two really milestone moments in your life, the birth of your twins and the final season, and the final race win for Stewart-Haas Racing, a team it's been well documented how much you really was a fan of Tony Stewart and got to drive that 14 car.
Yeah, for sure. That's, something that's amazing, right? That it's going to live on forever. And, a lot of those moments you forget about, right? Like you just,
Right.
it gets forgotten, whether you forget it, but even just the footage, stuff like that, like it gets so lost so quickly. But with Netflix, that'll be something that will live forever. And, 10, 15 years from now, I don't know if it'll still be on Netflix or not, but there's going to be somewhere where you can go watch it. And that's something that, down the road, I can go show my kids like, hey, look, this is the day you guys were born. Which is pretty cool, right? So, yeah, it's definitely special, and even the Stewart-Haas part of it, that was something that at Darlington they had a lot of, stuff that I had never seen before. And like for example, my crew's reaction, like I've never got to see how my pit crew and how my team guys were reacting with
Right.
10 to go, 5 to go, what happened when I crossed the finish line. So, that part was probably the coolest part, I would say, for me, was just seeing the reaction of all these people, because when I'm in the car, right, like I don't see what they're experiencing, the emotions and all those things. So
Sure.
for me, that was by far the coolest thing, and even got emotional watching it just because, I've known all those guys for so long, and to see how much it meant to them was pretty neat.
All right, so let's shift gears and let's talk about this season at Joe Gibbs Racing. But I have to ask you, the breaking news, I just got an email from NASCAR 20 minutes ago, is Homestead will be the playoff championship next year in 2026. So give me your initial reaction to that.
Yeah, I love it. Homestead's probably my favorite racetrack. So it's a place that, we were really strong there this year. I think we ended up third or fourth. And yeah, I think Homestead is the perfect racetrack to host a championship just because it kind of takes all the elements. Like as a race car driver, you have to be good. I feel like to go there and run up front. Your car has to be really good on the short run and the long run. Your pit crew has to be phenomenal because there's going to be a ton of pit stops, and it just takes this whole package. Like your restarts have to be good. But the thing I like about Homestead too is if your car's off as a driver, like you can just carry it a couple spots at Homestead where at Phoenix, I felt like your hands were always kind of tied. Like if you had an eighth place race car, if you could run sixth or seventh with it, like that was an incredible day. Where at Homestead, if you have an eighth place race car, you could run second, third with it. Especially if you're really good at running the walls. So I just think it's a great racetrack, and one that kind of takes the whole package to win at.
Okay, so now let's back up a little bit just to the start of the season. You come over from SHR to JGR, and I know you had a relationship. You and Christopher Bell have been friends for years. But tell me what it's been like working with Ty and Denny. Obviously, two guys in very different parts of their careers. I know your rookie season, you and Denny had a little conflict from Indy. So what has it been like working with those two drivers?
Yeah, it's been really good. I mean, all three of them, right? Like Christopher, like you said, me and him have been friends forever, and Christopher's like wearing me out every single weekend about like Chase, this is the weekend, like you're gonna turn it around this week. And then me and Ty honestly have gotten along really, really well, especially with him going and running sprint car stuff. I can relate to him on that and kind of help him out. And then obviously we're pretty similar in age. He's younger than me, but like we're kind of on the younger side versus Denny, I would say. And then Denny honestly has reminded me so much of working with Kevin Harvick. I mean, it is like so similar, I feel like, just how they approach things. And, that's something that has always amazed me, whether it was teammates with Kevin or now Denny, just how hard they work in their approach week in and week out, being, nearly 20 years in the sport. Like you would think they would get to the point where they kind of put the prep work on the back burner and don't take it maybe as seriously, but those two guys work harder than anybody I've ever seen in my career. So being teammates with Denny has been, certainly eye-opening from that standpoint, just of kind of what it takes to be a Hall of Famer. Just Kevin and Denny both are going to be first ballot Hall of Famers, and their approach is so similar. It's crazy. So it definitely is nice to kind of have that experience with Kevin because I do feel like it helps me with Denny quite a bit.
Okay. So I know at Daytona 500 Media Day, you were talking about one of the first things, interactions with James Small, was a lunch you guys had. And he said one of the things that needed to change with you was your eating habits and your fitness. So how has that gone through the first
Yeah.
11 races?
Yeah, the fitness diet, I definitely, I've never felt like I was like wore out in the race or anything, but I will say like just day to day, I definitely, working out now, 2, 3 days a week, I can see a difference. Like I'm finally at the point of the season where like, when we're doing stuff now, whether it's just even basic stuff like pull-ups or push-ups or sit-ups, like I can tell a physical difference and just how much better my form is, how many more I can do. So I know it's definitely helping. It's not hurting at all. But yeah, it's been good. Working with James still is been a lot of fun. He just takes it, he's so dedicated. He doesn't have kids or anything like that. So he really, his whole life revolves around the 19 team and its success. So it's been a lot of fun to work with James, and I feel like he's been great for me. And I feel like we were actually just texting about it last night. We have the eighth best average finish in Cup, and we feel like we've ran so bad it's not even funny. And we feel like we haven't even scratched the surface as a race team or as a driver crew chief pairing. So as we continue to get better, I feel like the sky's kind of the limit, truthfully.
Okay. And going back, I was up in Fort Worth this weekend, and after the race, I talked to Eric Jones, who finished fifth, and he was talking about, I asked about the track and the raciness, and he said, he thought it had widened out. He went to the back a couple times, finished fifth. Conversely, talked to Ryan Blaney. His response was, the track sucks. It's terrible. The bumps in 3 or 4, you can't do anything. So I know you had a little experience. I think it was coming out of 4. Tell me about what your thoughts are on the raciness of Texas.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely not the raciest racetrack we go to by any means. But I feel like it's definitely widened out. Especially since the first year or two that we went there. I mean, there's no denying that it's gotten wider. But I mean, it is a hard racetrack to pass at, and the bumps obviously in 3 and 4, it kind of ties your hands to kind of one lane. I mean, you can move around a little bit after the tires start wearing out, and the pace slows down. But early, on new tires, you just can't run up there. You just crash, and obviously I was guilty of that myself this past weekend. So, yeah, it's a challenging racetrack. I would be lying if I said that it's the raciest track that we have on the schedule, but I feel like it definitely, I mean, there's guys that went from the back to the front. It's just a lot of strategy and typically a lot of chaos that kind of gets them to the front. But yeah, it's part of it. It's the same for all of us, and one guy figured it out better than anybody else.
All right, couple of last questions. One is, do you still talk to Tony Stewart and have a regular relationship and communication with him?
Yeah, I went hunting with Tony in January actually, and that was the last time I've actually like hung out with him. I did text him after his NHRA win, and I haven't got a text back, but that's typically pretty normal for Tony. I was talking to him, I don't know, 2 weeks before he won about his son and just fatherhood and parenthood in general. So yeah, Tony's a big part of who I am, and I mean literally I got a picture right here of us. So it's he's definitely a big part of my life, and great friend and somebody that yeah, we definitely still stay close.
All right, last question. You are, as far as I know, the only active Cup Series driver on NASCAR Reddit. A, why do you do it? And B, do you know that there are other Cup drivers who are lurkers? Because I know Dale Jr. pops in on occasion, but
Yeah.
are there other drivers who are lurkers on the Reddit?
Yeah, I don't know if there is, to be honest with you. I love Reddit, first off, especially the NASCAR Reddit. I feel like it is such a just like a thermostat of what's going on in the landscape of NASCAR. Like you can get on there and you kind of get the real true hardcore fan, kind of their, I guess, what bias they are of certain situations. And there's rumors on there, and it's just a great community, truthfully. Like I love being a part of it. First off, because they tell it as it is. Like I can get on there and they're not afraid to just tell me that I suck or did something wrong, or no, this is the reason you should have done this. So I've really enjoyed just getting on there because it's just they don't care who you are. Like you're just another person on there to them. So I enjoy that for that reason. I lurked for probably 3 or 4 years before I finally just said I'm gonna try to figure this out, because it is super intimidating. I feel like, to start just even understanding how Reddit works in general. At least it was for me. But yeah, I don't know if there's any other drivers out there that lurk. I know that Dale obviously is on there and will post from time to time, but yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard of any drivers that talk about it. I know that a couple years ago there were some guys that were interested in it, but then a lot of them get on there and try to like almost self-serve themselves, and they get weeded out really quickly because they don't put up with that on there.
Right. Well, Chase, I appreciate your time. I'm sure your fans and everybody looks forward to the docuseries coming out tomorrow. And I wish you the best of luck the rest of 2025.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
Yeah, you too.